Well, I am so excited to be here. Get ready to cast our top 4 game. You join myself, Shay Burton, joined with the one and only Mike Ellis. How are you feeling?
I'm excited. Seeing Mew VMAX do so well, especially 2 different variations of it do so well. And on the other side, Lost Box, all the different variations of that coming through. Top 8 here has been so versatile. We've been in for a treat here in Malmo, Sweden, and we're going into that top 4 right now.
This is where that prizing starts to get out of hand. A lot of prize money on the line, a lot of boxes and, you know, CP as well, but also something that's technically not worth anything, but that is a bit of clout, a bit of reputation, being known as a regional champion. I'm sure all 4 of our top 4 players must be thinking, this is my time now. I'm going to be a regional champion. And what a position and a fantastic place that is to be.
And now we have the achievements come up on the stream. Having a nice little number next to Malmo regional will be quite nice. You know what it's like having your achievements shown on stream.
Oh, goodness gracious me. I'm getting done dirty here again.
You want to have as many as possible. So, you know, all these players really just trying to have fun here as well and play as well as they can. We've seen even in this top stage, people are having a good laugh. I was watching some of the other semi-finals, quarter-finals that weren't on stream.
Yep.
And you can see them having a lot of fun and just chatting away. It was great.
And yeah, so let's have a look at who we have lined up here for our top 4 game. We have ourselves,
that hair swish.
Look at Piotr there, looking awesome, looking majestic, looking ready. And he will be playing Lasse there with that Fusion Mew. Again, looking ready to do some damage and get himself in the final. What an all-star lineup here.
Cool, calm, and collected. You see that? That second pose. That's someone who knows how to play a deck right there. And you can see them on stage just chilling out, waiting for us to join them. Piotr on the right there, Lasse on the left. And you've been a fan of Fusion Mew for a long time. And you get to see it here on the big stage, top 4. Why did you give up on Fusion Mew?
Why did I give up on Fusion Mew? Well, let me talk to you about my history a little bit of Fusion Mew. They got top 128 EUIC with Fusion Mew and top 128 at the London Open. Unfortunately, it wasn't on my achievements bit, but that was both with Fusion Mew. Why did I give up on Fusion Mew? I think with the rise of Disruption Mew, and it's such a hard matchup on paper. Sure, you can cheese 2 prize cards with Meloetta early, but Path Judge is just really hard to work with. Here we see some prize cards, and to be honest, not too outrageous for both players, I think.
Yeah, I guess the Zamazenta could be some nice early damage if you get a high count into the loss zone. Might be able to take out a Mew V or a Genesect V to then set up for the endgame Kyogre. So that being quite high up, but then there is that heavy ball to get it out of the prizes if needed. So not too scary, and they're going to get that handshake, and we get going here. Lasse versus Piotr in the semi-finals here at Malmo, Sweden, and starting off with a Cramorant in the active, not optimal.
No, not the greatest. You really want to start by giving a Comfort in the active to start using flower selecting to get that lost zone number as high as possible. You know, 7 activates the Mirage Gates and 10 activates Sableye. Both crazy cards in their own right. And, you know, it's interesting. There's so many different ways lost zone bots can look to attack a Mew VMAX deck. You might see a Greninja do a 90-90 on 2 Mew Vs, making it so unless you Psychic Leap, those Mew VMAXs will have a little HP. You know, Sableye can sprinkle damage onto Genesect. We know that damage isn't going to go anywhere. There is no Volo or anything like this, so definitely open-ended gameplay routes.
Whereas on the other side, Lasse, probably the perfect start, going second there, knowing that Alyssa Sparkle and manual attachment of double turbo energy will be enough to start swinging. Deoxys designed for this matchup.
100% that Deoxys, like you said, perfectly built with that HP of 120, basically meaning I can survive a Cramorant here and live to tell the tale. It's attack Photon Boost, I think, is perfect for dealing with Lost Box as well. 80 plus 80 if you have a Fusion Strike energy attached. Really good for carrying Comfey, Sableyes, or Cramorants.
Yeah, the Zamazenta, I think, would be able to tank that just because it's got that Metal Shield ability, which adds reduces 30 damage, essentially adding 30 hit points to it when going for the knockout with a double turbo energy on. That would be out of range. So the only Pokemon really out of range on Piotr's side. Piotr playing a lot of basic Pokemon, all basic Pokemon in fact, and all of them won prizes.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about a single prize deck where there is no option to, like, you know, Echoing Horn Illuminion here or KOization V there. You're basically telling your opponent who's playing a predominantly 1-prize attacking deck, you have to KO 6 of my little 1-prize Pokemon, and you have to mainly attack with a 3-prize Pokemon. It can get a little bit dicey.
Indeed, and we see first off concealed cards. You can see all the Comfey out, ready to go. No retreat outs in hand, so we'll need to manually retreat with an energy, and probably only get one flower selecting off here unless a retreat or switch out is found in that first flower selecting. And this is what we talk about. Having no Comfey in the active just adds one more retreat required to get going. And as we see there, just a poker gear will be good for next turn, maybe for the chorus experiment, but just this first turn, only one in the lost zone.
Yeah, not as explosive as I think you would like. Yeah, no switching. No, let's just see a pokey gear. Debating whether to go for the pokey stop. Pokey stop's riskier at the start of the game, but you haven't been able to thin out everything. So yeah, it looks like one card in the lost zone.
Oh, look at that. Double battle VIP pass on the other side too. Both players starting off with the dream start in terms of their hand. Just the starting Pokemon, the difference. But Battle VIP Pass, so key for Mew VMAX.
Yeah, everyone come down to the VIP party. Mew, Genesect, Melloware, everyone's welcome. As long as you're a basic Pokemon, being able to fill your bench, Fusion Strike system, so you can draw a ton of cards. And the great thing about Fusion Mew over any other deck in format, for the most part, going second, you provide a solid offensive option.
100%. I mean, Deoxys in this matchup is great. Meloetta in lots of other matchups can get as high as 240 in that first turn with a Choice Belt or other damage modifiers, even Power Tablets going even higher than that. So you can knock out pretty much anything that would be there in the first turn. But you can see going nice and wide here, 2 Mew, 2 Genesect, maybe even see something else from hand to try and go for the full 5-wide bench.
And that's really what you want to see. And ideally, you want to try and get an attack off with Deoxys here, because Deoxys can tank a hit from the Cramorant and, you know, just start making life hard for Piotr there. Things are looking good so far.
And at this early stage, the supporters are really important to get in the right order. There's a lot of 2 offs of supporter, 2 Judge, 2 Alyssa Sparkle, 2 Boss, 1 Roxanne. So getting the right one at the right time is super key. And early on, it's going to be all about that Alyssa Sparkle.
Yeah, now the manual attachment of the fusion energy there. Oh, there we see a Judge, but with the fusion energy manual attachment, that means we're probably, well, no, we're not going to see a Deoxys attack this turn, because even if he was to Alyssa Sparkle to Deoxys, you're only at 2 energy there. You need to have a manual attachment of a DT to attack, so a little bit of early game potency might be lost here for Lasse.
Yeah, it needs to get going as soon as possible in this match. As you said, all 1 prizes, so has to take 6 knockouts here throughout the game. It's going to be a slow game, but then that's where Mew can often gain turns back through those judges, and that early judge there could be very effective, especially in that Kyogre build. There's so many cards required to build that synergistic end game with Kyogre, Clara, your energy recyclers. All of these pieces are not ones you want to see in your early turns, so if you can judge them into those cards, it can make it really tough.
No, 100%. Well, Piotr's hand wasn't that great, but Lasse wasn't to know that. And what's really interesting is traditionally the way Mew VMAX is built, you see the disruption route, which is, you know, can be as high as 4 Path to the Peaks and 4 Lost Vacuums. And if you are to see a Fusion Mew knocking about, it tends to have a real high Lost City count, which is great for when you're dealing with Lost Box decks, because you can Lost Zone their attackers, meaning they can't be Cloud or anything like this. But Lasse here has really gone for a hybrid. Does play 2 Path to the Peak, 3 Lost Vacuum and 1 Lost City. Unfortunately, it isn't the prize cards. So yeah, opting to go for a bit of a hybrid, and maybe that could be the way to go. I mean, it's doing well for him here in top 4.
Yeah, because when Mew was first coming out and there was the double turbo energy build, it sort of diverged into 2 different paths. It was the one which went for disruption, the one which went for explosive power with the fusion build. This one, right in the middle, so perhaps that is the way to bring in the fusion system. As we see that Chorus experiment in the hand. I mean, Lasse couldn't have known there was no Chorus experiment in the last hand. There was a poker gear.
There was,
so there could have been a way to a Chorus, but the worst card to see someone have out of a Judge, as it will start building up that Lost Zone very quickly.
Yeah, you're a bit like, oh, come on, Judge, do us a favor here. And if Deoxys takes a hit here, Deoxys now loses effectiveness, because what it wants to be is a 1-prize Pokemon that can take 2 prize cards against Lost Box. If it takes the first hit, it then loses that advantage, and it can be quite energy intensive, requiring 1 fusion energy and a DT to operate.
So we saw coming into this regional that Kyogre was going up in popularity in the Lost Box, and some Mew players were looking to play a Manaphy in the Mew list, which is crazy considering how much that reduces the power in other matchups.
Yeah.
You know, there's been some ideas of Mew VMAX around, you know, Squovit as well, sometimes featuring to help withdraw. You know, there's a case for the Oricorio, but generally Mew VMAX is played without any of these other attackers. How much does having some single prize attackers like Deoxys and Meloetta change the rhythm of the deck?
It lets you be a lot more less focus on attacking with Mu VMAX, right? Like back in the day when you had like double Meloetta, against some decks you could just go double Meloetta, double Fusion Energy and get to rolling. Which can be really advantageous. It gives you a lot more freedom to, like, you know, be a bit more liberal with how you attack. And it's interesting you bring up some of the other Pokemon. I guess the main successful Pokemon that we've seen in Mew decks that isn't a Fusion Strike Pokemon has to be that Aerodactyl V-Star, being able to turn off V-Star ability. Don't see it as much as often now because Lugia is a bit more on the downtrend, but I think that's the main success.
Yeah, I think, was there Flying Pikachu once saw?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, actually.
That was a bit of fun, but yeah, we see typically just straight fusion Pokemon now in Mew, trying to be as efficient as possible. But this start has been pretty good here for Piotr off the back of that Judge. Now 5 in the Lost Zone, getting close to that Mirage Gate. At that point, you can start thinking about sprinkling damage, you know, double Greninja attacks. No Manaphy, as we mentioned in Mew lists, typically. So that means Greninja can be activated early on, too.
And what's really worrying if you're staring down a Kyogre deck as a Mew player is that all the Lost Box player has to do is take 2 prize cards. Because as soon as you take them, you know they're going to be Genesects on the bench. They only have 190. That's only 4 energy needed off for an Aqua Storm, and that's very easy for these decks to deal with. And that is, I ain't got a clue what that is, but it's picking up his deck.
It's definitely a heads, that's for sure. Yeah, when I was playing earlier on during the GLC game, which we won't talk about, but watching, looking at the dice from the table, just the angle for the players, it's very easy to tell when you're down there. Because there's white on that table, the aerial view on that dice sometimes doesn't show, but we can normally work out what it is based off of the way the players act there, and going through the deck, finding one of any card Lassa wants, doesn't need to reveal it because it can be any card, and we'll put it into their hand.
And I guess Lasse's got away with it. The Deoxys not taking a hit last turn, so it can be a 1-prize Pokemon that can take 2 prize cards. And ideally for Lasse, you want to try and grab that Lost City and start to Lost City, or put in Lost Zone, I should say, Cramorant, Sableye in the late game, Greninja even. These are all solid attackers. Here we do see the DT coming down, so a Photon Boost might be on the cards.
Yeah, just got to announce as many Photon Boosts as possible. The less attacks you do with the Mew VMAX, the better. There is the Psychic Leap options later on. No Cleansing Gloves means that would have to be done with a Power Tablet. But still, later on in the game, you can take Mew VMAX out of the play. But as we mentioned, that's not Kyogre's strategy. They're not going for the Mew VMAX. So maybe a whole different game plan here against Piotr.
100%, and it reminds me of when you played Fusion Mew back in the day at the last EUIC, not the one in London, the one in Frankfurt, where if you played Mew into Malmo, your game plan was to attack with Mew VMAX as little as possible. You would just musical chairs every turn, Psychic Leaps, Meloettas here, and that's kind of what Lasse should be, or I would imagine we'd be trying to do, is not attack with a Mew VMAX as often as possible until you can realistically try and close the game out. Unfortunately, Lasse didn't take the Lost City out of the prizes though.
Yeah, also needs to disrupt as much as possible. With the Kyogre build, they want to get a massive hand right at the end with all those combo pieces together. And if you constantly judge them over and over and over again, they're going to have to reset and start digging again. And if you're knocking out Comfey back to back to back to back, that's going to be where the engine starts to slow down, and the path you see put in play to stop the concealed cards from the Greninja as well. So just trying to reduce that blitzing motion of the Lost Engine here as much as possible.
Here we do see a Mirage Gate. We see a Water Energy moved immediately. I wonder if we're going to see a Moonlight Shuriken here. We're not quite at Lost Mine territory yet, but Moonlight Shuriken is a dangerous attack. 90 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. You set up the Deoxys even. You can tag 2 Mew Vs, force one of them to evolve in Psychic Leap, which probably isn't going to KO a Greninja in the active. It's just a solid attack, all things considered.
I wonder if we do see Genesects being taken out early, maybe with a Greninja or with what we mentioned earlier, Zamazenta, where they're just having 3 Mew VMAXs on the board and just going for Max Miracles would be the approach, because, you know, Max Miracle takes out the whole of Piotr's deck.
Yep.
So might not even need to Psychic Leap, might just look to try and have big tanky Mew VMAX, and as we saw Tord try and do, just move them around the board based off of what's more threatening, a Zamazenta or a Kyogre. Yeah,
and it looks like he's opting to go for double Genesect. So what I feel as if the prize map could be is you try and knock out one of these Genesects with Sableye. Lasse will then have to put down another one to keep drawing cards, and then that opens up the door then for your Kyogre to close the game out. And you might
Echoing Horn too as well.
That's a fantastic point. Echoing Horn, which you saw got used in the top 8 game. An incredible power spike card if used effectively.
Yeah, so we see 9 damage on either of those Genesect. That puts them on 100 left.
Ooh.
And an easy set of turns here for Lasso. Just going to try and go through his deck as much as possible, keep announcing Photon Boost until he can no longer announce Photon Boost. It's just about trying to disrupt around that at this point.
Problem with just announcing Photon Boost over and over again, though, is that you're leaving Piotr maximum range to just sprinkle damage around. I mean, there's nothing he can really do about it. I have a feeling that that path to the peak for Lasso that he put in play might have bricked him a little bit here.
Yeah, if he's not got a way to deal with that, then he can't draw.
Yeah.
We're going to be stuck in top deck mode. But as I mentioned before, Photon Boost can just keep being announced. But yeah, you know, I've been there before as a Mew VMAX player. You think this path is genius to put down. No one will ever be able to deal with this. And actually, Mew is one of the most disrupted decks in the format from a path, which is why they play so many Lost Vacuum. But only the 3 here in this Fusion build.
Yeah, so it looks like Piotr played the heavy ball, didn't take the Zamazenta. Couldn't actually see. Oh, took a comp fade. Right. Okay. So let's see what Piotr opts to do here. Not quite a Sableye range yet. Does have access to a flower selecting. Was that Beach Core and a Chorus? Was that? Is it Chorus? I think it is.
Yeah, you mentioned about the path as well. Now, after getting that knockout with the Photon Boost, that means the Lost City will have been taken.
Yes, 100%.
So we'll be able to bump that next turn if needed. But yeah, you said the Sableye's key here. If the Sableye can be activated this turn, which it will be with that Chorus experiment, then that means we can see those Genesects being taken. And once one Genesect is taken, Piotr's not going to want to go below that 3 prize card threshold, because that brings Roxanne in, and that's true disruption on that Kyogre build. Just going to try and play out the rest of the game until that Kyogre can be executed.
I think looking at Lasse's body language, I think he can see what's going on here. And oh, Echoing Horn could be getting lost on here. You arguably probably don't need it, to be honest with you. But I think if I was to draw up a perfect deck for Lost Zone Kyogre to play against, I think Mew's up there because it's got multi-prize basic Pokemon that only have 190. You can't V-Star them, you can't really get around them. They tend not to play cards like Penny or Volo, so you know they're staying there, and that is just Kyogre food.
Yeah, now that Echoing Horn is gone, the ability to have 3 Mew VMAX in play is possible. So Lasso can get around the idea of getting 2 Genesect on the bench with the Kyogre. So maybe that clocked as he saw the Echoing Horn going in there. I don't know if Piotr thought about that. Maybe he thinks, oh, well, there's definitely going to be a Mew available at least.
Yeah, well, yeah, like you said, being able to evolve all 3 could be quite hard. Piotr opting not to go for Lost Mine might not have access to the Psychic Energy, I think, of all things. There are quite a few in the discard pile. I see at least 1, and 1 in the Lost Zone does play a grand total of 3. So there's only 1 Psychic Energy left for Piotr to get. Obviously, can't use Clara, but...
Or a Mirage Gate, but I guess wants to hold on to Clara, Recycler, Mirage Gate, all these kind of useful pieces for the end game with the Kyogre. So, you know, there is room here for Lasso to keep announcing attacks. You know, he's been given a turn back, will announce another attack, leaves the path in play. Not too worried about disruption, as is typical against Lost Box, but has gone down to 3 prizes now, so Roxanne could be an option.
I think Lasso needs to be a bit careful here. I mean, as good as announcing Photon Blast is, if Piotr can get to the Kyogre, like let's say he gets to Kyogre this turn, you can Kyogre both the Mews with DTEs on, and then that leaves 1 DTE on the active, meaning Lasso won't be able to, I guess you can attack with Fusion Energies, but then those Genesects are going to be sat there. So I feel as it needs to be a little bit careful of just Photon boosting. It might need to try and do some Psychic Leap shenanigans, because as it stands now, Piotr's can, if this game goes long, Piotr's fine. This just makes my Kyogre at some point be even easier.
Well, he's on a clock, right? There's 3 turns now for Lasso. And so Piotr has to try and take those 6 prizes in those turns. We know that 1 turn he can take 4 prizes with a Kyogre. Right now, one of the Genesects is going to go down to this Sableye, most likely.
Yep.
So there is a bit of a clock there. And as we mentioned, there are ways around it for Lasso. So we'll see how next turn goes. But yeah, that Clara was not played last turn to get the energy back because the Chorus experiment was played. So just patience from Piotr to try and time these supporters. And there we go, 11 damage on that Genesect, 1 Genesect going down, and we'll see what happens now.
Okay, let's see what happens. This is definitely, this next turn could be crucial here for Piotr. He's going to try and get to the Kyogre. Oh, there you go. So Path to the Peak has been replaced. That means this Sableye with the Psychic, oh no, just the Sableye, sorry, will get sent to the Lost Zone. So there won't be a Sableye available via Clara. We'll have to try and find the next one. And that's where Deoxys is really strong, if you can Lost Zone your opponent's attackers with a 1-prize Pokemon.
It's going to be really tough to get multiple VMAX out now with just the 1 Genesect on the bench, and won't be able to add any more. And without being worried about the Kyogre, but maybe we'll think about disruption then instead. We'll think, if I get Genesect down, I can disrupt. But the dream situation here would be to have 3 Mew VMAX in play and leave that Genesect there, but the hand not looking likely to do that. There is a Feather Ball in the prizes, so if there is one more turn for Lassa to survive, then that will be possible. Otherwise, this is going to be a Kyogre turn imminent.
Yeah, I think if you're Lasse, the judge, if you can pull it off, this might be the turn, because Pyotr's hand is getting quite accordion-like, and you have to, if you can give these Lost Box turn decks all these options to play with, that's where they thrive, being able to say, okay, I'll clear this, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll lost zone that, and all of a sudden, bish, bash, bosh, Kyogre comes down and does 250 to 2 of your bench Pokemon, as it were. Here we do see a Pal Pad. I'm intrigued to see what this shuffles in. We know, I think one judge has been played already off the top of my head, I believe, or?
I think that's the only supporter. This is the difference between the Fusion build and the DTE build, is the Fusion build tends not to blitz through the deck as much. You can see how thick the deck is there for Lassa as he's shuffling. You know, you haven't got as much draw support because you're playing other Pokemon down onto your bench. We've only seen 2 Genesect this game, where the Meloetta or Deoxys tends to come down to fill another one of those slots. And we see what happens here. Lassa really needs to try and find some VMAX here, otherwise a Mew and that Genesect are going to be targeted by Kyogre.
And that's one of the other downsides of playing the Fusion Mew build, is that if you're playing Fusion, you probably want to make use of some Fusion attacker, whether it's Meloetta or Deoxys. But that's one spot that isn't a Genesect, so it means you're drawing less cards over the course of the game.
Ultra Ball and Judge right there.
Drew into the Judge, or a Judge, I should say.
So there's an Ultra Ball and Judge right there. So we're going to see Ultra Ball get a Mew VMAX. The Judge could draw into another Mew VMAX naturally.
Yeah, we definitely could. I'd say as many Mew VMAXs in play as possible will be advantageous. Pyotr being very clever with his damage placement, not putting damage onto Mew so it cannot get removed with Psychic Leap. Obviously, Lost City is still in play as well, but will that mean if Lasse cannot find a switching card though, we'll have to pay retreat on this Deoxys, which means all the DTs will be in play or in the discard pile at that point.
We can just keep announcing with the Photon boost.
Oh, true.
That's until the end of the game. And, you know, at the end of the game, he can definitely call that Deoxys the MVP.
Yeah.
If he does manage to win this, the Mew VMAX just getting as big as possible to survive Kyogre. As we see this be a massive judge, not only for Lasse to find his cards, but also on the other side to disrupt Pyotr. Might get him one more turn back where he can keep announcing attacks and increase that clock.
Yeah, that was the perfect turn, I feel, for the judge there. Because this next turn for Pyotr will be huge. And you're basically asking questions here. I'm going to Lost Zone your Sableye. I'm going to put your hand down to 4, and I'm going to make you answer some questions. Like, can you thin your deck? Chances are, judge, you know, top deck 1 goes down to 5, maybe a Flower Selecting or 2. But then you have to start finding switching cards as well.
All right, so let's see what this judge delivers for both players, as that Genesect was an MVP right there. So there's a Meloetta and a Mew VMAX right there in his hand. He's going to evolve it. Kyogre no longer an option on that bench. 1 Genesect alone, Echoing Horn in the Lost Zone. So now we have to defeat one of these Mew VMAXs for Pyotr, otherwise there's not enough prizes available.
Wow, you guys can't see me, but I'm stunned. I've never thought you'd see 3 Mew VMAX in play, and it's actually the advantageous things to do. You're right, the Echoing Horn being sent to the Lost Zone could really come back to bite Pyotr here. What a swing turn from Lasse. Look at himself. I think he is a bit pleased with himself. I would be as well.
My goodness. And we see that Roxanne, Kyogre there too, some switch outs, a Sableye. So much to do here now for Pyotr. 2 prizes remaining for Lasse. And this is going to be a tough scenario. And we mentioned, how does the Fusion Mew win? And it is just these options. There's so many ways it can dissect the opponent's game plan. And right here, you're seeing exactly that.
Yeah, and I was being a bit dismissive of just going Photon Boost, Photon Boost, Photon Boost. But if you can get to this position where you've got Photon Boost still with fresh HP and 3 Mew VMAXs out, there's no real way for Pyotr to deal with that. There is no Drapion or anything like this. So these Mew VMAXs are going to be tough. And the good thing is, if that Lost City stays in play, you can Lost Zone a Kroger. I mean, you can't do that stuff again. Oh, my goodness gracious.
I mean, take out that Photon Boost Deoxys, and you've got a Mew VMAX coming in with a double Turbo Energy attach. Copy Max Miracle, and that's going going to be doing enough.
Yeah, exactly. Max Miracle there doing that, going through all effects, not really relevant, but the damage output is, funnily enough, if the Genesect gets carried, it would be the only attack these Mews will be able to copy if Photon Boost gets carried as well. So looking at Pietro's hand, though, does have the Colress experiment, so, you know, doing quite well off the back of that judge. Let's see what this flower selecting gets. Psychic Energy, what is that other card? What was that, actually?
Not quite sure, but I think at this point, Piotr is going to be thinking, there it is, Echoing Horn is in the lost zone. He literally just went to go check for it. That was his only route out of this. Energy Recycler going there too. And so next game, definitely going to think about holding onto that Echoing Horn, as this strategy from Lassa was, I would say, fairly high roll, you know, to get all those Mew VMAX off of such few draw.
It was.
And to judge as well. But, I mean, that's what Fusion Mew does. It high rolls.
Yeah, and, you know, for one of the concessions, when I played Fusion Mew VMAX before, I actually only played 2 Mew VMAXs as well. So, you know, maybe Piotr wasn't even expecting to see 3 Mew VMAXs even being an option. But here they are. So let's see what Piotr looks to do here. Does have access to Sableye. That was his last copy. As well as the last copy of Psych Energy. And let's see where this Lost Mine goes.
So the thing is, if he gets a load of damage on a Mew VMAX, so he has to put 6 on each to guarantee the 250 Kyogre, because he can just move that Mew VMAX with damage on into the active spot. So another disruption probably needed here for Lassa, because a Mew VMAX and a Genesect would do it. It'd have to be 250 by the Kyogre.
And the interesting thing is you can't even look to bench a Mew V to do a Psychic Leap, because that's a Kyogre target in its own self. So, yeah, this could get a little bit dicey here for Lasse. That has to be a 6, right? Yeah,
that was a heads right there.
Let's see, what can Lasse do? Yeah, Piotr, you know, has countered the counter here, saying, you know what, okay, you've gone 3 Mew VMAX, but it's still perfectly fine for me to win this game. Let's see what Lasse can do.
I mean, there is Kyogre in hand. I think I can see 7 energy, maybe 8 energy there in the discard pile. And we'll be, so I think it's 7.
Yeah, 7.
7, so he needs 8 to be able to pull off the Kyogre. If there's 1 in deck, that can work too. One of the Energy Recycler did go into the Lost Zone, but they play 3, so 2 of those still in deck. And right now, a disruption is required just to try and make it as hard as possible for Kyogre to pull off that 250 damage output needed to win the game next turn.
Oh, is this another? Was that? I thought it was another Cramomatic then. I was like, oh my goodness. Right, let's see what Lasse opts to do here. Fusion Trike System draws an extra 1, I believe. And
exactly.
Let's see. I see a Meloetta. I see a Path to the Peak.
Yeah, Path of the Peak is fine at this stage. Takes away that concealed cards from the Greninja, which is an option to try and dig a bit deeper. And
it was a judge. I imagine that was the Cram target. And like you said, this is all Lasse can do here. You know, take prize card and ask questions. And to be fair, he is on 2 prize cards now. Will be going down to 1 and giving Piotr a 4-card hand. Quite honestly, this could be the turn that decides game 1.
100%, and this just shows you how hard this is for the Fusion Mew to play against Kyogre. Kyogre is a replacement for these Dark-type attackers in Lost Box, to know that they've got the advantage into Mew. If they can get down to that end stage and just take 2 small Pokemon, as we saw, the Mew VMAX came in, made that harder, but off of that, just an energy, a Kyogre, Mirage Gate, and I think it's going to be switch-outs that are needed for Piotr.
Yeah, it wasn't Mirage Gate. I thought it was an energy. Is there an energy recycler there?
There's an energy recycler in there too, so needs some switch outs to start going through that Comfey, otherwise not going to be able to dig through that deck enough.
And there we do see the retreat into the damaged 1, or a damaged 1, I should say. Goes for a KO, I imagine, with Max Miracle. Down to 1 prize card, so Piotr does need to win exactly this turn, otherwise he will go 1 game down here in this top 4 game. What does he top deck? Switching card. That's a good part of the puzzle.
That is huge. I think at this stage, if he gets an awkward flower selecting with 2 important parts, maybe an energy recycler plus something else that's needed, this could be dangerous. Energy recycler and a Colress, but that Colress could have helped so much to dig deeper.
And he
has to take the energy recycler. He can't take the Colress.
Oh, that could be argued as being the worst 2 cards in combination of a flower selecting, and that is one potential downside to playing these Lost Box decks, is that if you're flower selecting and 2 good cards are in the top, one of them has to go.
And every single time that judge comes off, it just condenses the good cards into the deck, making those flower selectings worse and worse. Less switch outs as the game goes on. And he's going to have to take that energy recycler. No chance to use Colress here.
I just love Lasse's body language just there saying, go on then, I've made it as hard as possible. Can you get around it? Especially seeing that Colress hit the loss zone, probably thinking you probably wanted to play that, as it were. Well, what is this Flower selecting? That deck is looking small. I see a nest ball and a pokey gear. Probably.
Oh, that poker gear would have been nice the other way around.
It would have been,
But yes, we see the nest ball. Easy decision there. There is an energy in hand, but with only one Mirage Gate, I think that might be needed to attach. So there is another Mirage Gate in there. There is 8 energy currently in the discard. The Pokestop could help bounce a part of the peak, which would allow for a concealed cards.
But is there any energy in Piotr's hand, though?
He has 1 energy, a metal energy, so he can do a retreat into the final Comfey. Needs to get a Pokestop, I think, off of that to start getting those last few cards.
Yeah, so there's definitely the pieces of the puzzle are there, but it's definitely not in the most optimal play or path, I should say. It could be relying, like you said, trying to find that path, that Pokestop, I should say. Trying to work out what's he.
Well, with the Clara, he can then use concealed cards, so he should be able to dig to the bottom. So Pokestop needed off the next Flower selecting, I believe.
And how does he? Did he have a switching card in hand?
Well, he has the energy, so if he uses that energy to retreat, he then doesn't have a retreat out later on.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a switch out in those final cards. I didn't quite see that, and that might be enough. And there we go, Poker Gear or Mirage Gate. I don't think he's got it there. Yeah. This is the combo. It's so tough to do when the judges keep coming out.
Yeah, you're right, and that's all Lasse's been doing, asking questions, basically making this turn right here as hard as possible. And I think so far, Lasse made it as hard as possible and only goes 1-0 up in his best of top 4.
Lasse just shaking his head there. He was not expecting to win that one at the end there. This is such a tough matchup. You have to do 6 turns of Photon Boost or using a Miracle. You know, Max Miracle is so tough, but he manages to do it there. It takes game 1, but now has to try and find one of these next 2 games.
Yeah, so that Deoxys Photon Boost taking, what, 4 prize cards. Mew took the next one, and who knows who took the 6th one, doesn't matter. But Lasse is currently 1-0 up here in the Malmo top 4 game, and he must be feeling on top of the world.
Amazing. I mean, you've just got to respect the playing to your outs here, and that's what VMAX does so well. We've seen that across the board, playing to your outs. You have so many ways to disrupt, you know, find bosses' orders can do so much in the game, and you have ways to draw into those options. So an amazing deck that has done so well throughout the weekend, and here the Fusion build showing why both builds are viable.
Yeah, you know, there you're seeing the real benefit of playing a hybrid. We saw the path to the peak come down that mid-game to deny Greninja. We saw the Lost City come up, you know, lost zoning some attackers, and then we saw the Deoxys, you know, just taking most of the prize cards there, just being an irritant there for Piotr. And full credit to Piotr, I think, playing it as well as he could, you know, trying to manufacture those turns, but the triple Mew VMAX coming down was just so awkward. Well,
the Deoxys can't really be attacked by Piotr because he has to do 2 hits on it with a Cramorant or use a Sableye turn on it, which is late game, and at that point he wants to start to focus on the Genesect. And the one prizer doesn't really do anything because they want to be taking 4 prizes at the end, 2 prizes early on. So that Deoxys can just stay in the active and just keep attacking.
And full credit there to Lasse. I think he played that almost perfectly, at least in my opinion. Did everything he needed to.
Only thing he missed was that first turn where he couldn't quite attack, and outside of that, he did everything perfect.
Yeah, went for the triple Mew. Oh, speaking of Mew VMAXs, won't be able to go 3 this time because 2 are in the prize cards. Just play 3, obviously, though. And looking at Piotr's prizes there, I think we saw, what, Colress, Mirage Gate, Clara, Nest Ball, VIP Battle Pass, and an Energy.
So VIP Battle Pass in Lasse's first hand, and this is where, when you go up 1 game, you're in that comfortable spot where you can afford to have a game where you don't get a perfect start, and also there's a chance that your opponent will have a bad start. And right here, Piotr not seeing any Battle VIP Pass in that first hand.
No, could get a little bit dicey. And here, if you're Lasse, you're thinking, right, I'm currently 1-0. All I have to do now is win 1 of 2. And if I lose this one, I'm definitely going first next game. So definitely in the driver's seat. It's definitely Piotr here who has to rise to the challenge, as it were. But if I'm honest, if any deck can do it, I'm putting Lost Zone Kroger quite high up there because that is a scary card. We didn't get to see it in the last game, but trust me, it's terrifying.
It's one of those end game attackers that we sometimes just never see. Same thing with Mewtwo v Union. It's got that sort of puzzle piece put together effect where at the end it doesn't always come together, but when it does, it guarantees the victory. And on the other side, Lasso will just want to try and hit as many knockouts early as possible if there's a slow start here for Piotr. Piotr, putting the energy in the Lost Zone, has to take the Cramorant. I think that's his only other Pokemon, so cannot risk leaving just the lone Comfey against this Mew list. And that's going to be the perfect start for Lasso. He's happy to see this few Pokemon in play.
Yeah, and to tell you what, it's a good thing Piotr did manage to find that Cramorant, because if not, Meloetta and or Deoxys could just come down and attack. And that's the good thing about Fusion Mew, is that on your first turn going second, you can attack, whether it's a Psychic Leap, Photon Boost, or Meloetta.
Oh yeah, even Psychic Leap.
Yeah, you could just Psychic Leap, yeah.
Yeah, so great spot here for Lassa. He's going to be looking to get the Deoxys out. MVP last game. Like you said, the Meloetta would be a potential option, but could be risky later on because it is a lower HP single prizer, and having two single prizers could effectively act like that first Genesect.
Yeah.
But we shall see what draws are possible here for Lassa as
Elisa Sparkle. Wow, so if he could, I think there's a Cramomatic in the hand, right? So, hold on, that's the judge is saying something. Yeah,
you must select him, but you have to select him before you go in.
Yeah, that is 100%. I do believe he pointed at him. But it looks like there was a Chromatic in the hand, so Lassa could try and grab this double turbo. And that's asking questions immediately, because Piotr didn't have the hottest of starts, you know. Chances are he might have access to a supporter, yes or no. But if he hasn't, having to deal with this Deoxys could prove difficult. And we saw how effective it was in the last game.
Yeah, and it also thins cards out, so if starts to getting a good draw going, those are some non-likely cards to hit. You don't want to see a Fusion Energy later on. You want to see some basic Pokemon start widening out that bench. Battle VIP Pass is great, but need a little bit more than that to start drawing, as that hand has still got too many cards in it to activate that Fusion Strike system.
And that's one of the downsides, well, probably the main downside of playing the Fusion Mew over 4 DT, is that you have so many more cards that sometimes aren't auto-plays. Fusion Strike Energy, Elisa Sparkle, Deoxys and or Meloetta.
Huge Cramomatic here. If we see that heads, we'll know a Battle VIP Pass is to come. And no heads, you just see that sigh from Lassa. That could have completely changed this game. And we'll see a Lost City going down just to decrease that hand size, activate that first Genesect. But imagine how different this would have looked with a Battle VIP Pass.
Sometimes when you play Mew, come on, Mew players in the chat and in the audience behind us, sometimes you have those Cramomatic and Prey turns, and this looked like it could have been one of them. But speaking of the Psychic Leap there, we do see it turn 1, 70 damage because there is no DT reduction.
Yeah, and that Cramorant was put into the active because they wanted to give it up in case.
Yeah.
But that means now another switch out's needed to go into the Comfey. A Chorus Experiment here will put the Lost Zone up to 3. And I guess outside of that, it will need to be a quick little switcheroo for a Flower Selecting, which we'll see off of that Chorus Experiment.
There we do see the Battle VIP Pass go into the Lost Zone with a copy of Manaphy. Not super needed in this matchup. You do see the switch card healing potentially could be relevant, you never know. And does get this Comfey active for a Flower Selecting.
Yeah, and we see this will put it up to 4. Another switch out will put the Cramorant back into the active to be able to attack. And so, no, not the best start for Piotr, but to be able to get a Cramorant attack off on your first attacking turn is pretty ideal at this stage.
Yeah, and doesn't really find a ball search card there. Does find a heavy ball, but unfortunately there is no target there for that. So it's just looking a little bit dicey here for Piotr. Only having 2 Pokemon in play turn 2, while Lassa, didn't have the greatest of starts, but can at least attack. It's not looking great. I think Piotr did attach retreat this turn. Oh no, he switched card, didn't he? So we could maybe see an attach retreat into a Spit Innocently, but not the hottest of starts you want to see in a game 2 in a top 4 match.
Well, this is the whole thing about Fusion Mew, isn't it? Going second, it still has ways to get into the game, and an early attack, getting damage on the board, getting that much energy on the board as well with the 3 Fusion Energy in play can be big. And I think that's where the Fusion Mew really excels, is it works well out in Japan where they have the best of 1 format, because they have to be able to win games where they go second. So it gives you that access to be able to do that a lot better. And you can see that here in this going second scenario. On a slow start, it will punish you.
Yeah, that was the main USP for Fusion Mew for longest of times, right? Is that if you're going first with Fusion Mew, you can be in a scary position if you get to 4 Fusion Energies turn 2, because Mo's Echo is swinging for 280. If you're going second, you're still in a good scenario, because you can turn 1 swing with Mo's Echo or Photon Boost now, or even Psychic Leap at this moment in time, and put some pressure on. There we even see an escape rope getting that Deoxys into the active, where I think it really needs to be.
Oh, 2 endgame attackers there, Kyogre and Sableye.
Wow.
There is a second Sableye in the deck, but don't want to be getting rid of too many of those, as we do see the Kyogre having to go to hand, needs to keep that for the endgame, and that's one of the advantages of this build, is that there are some flower selectings where you just have to take one of them. You can't, you can't give up, and we saw that earlier on with the Energy Recycler versus Colress Experiment, and so there we go. Cramorant will attack for 110, but that 120 hit point Deoxys can sustain 1 hit. Perfect for this scenario, and that's why we see it's so popular in this list for the matchup.
Yeah, I think that's Deoxys' first time taking damage in this best of 3, even though it took 4 prize cards in the last game. Here we do see Mew VMAX come down. Looking over at Lassay's side, does have a lost vacuum, I believe, so can, get rid of this Beach Court, draw 2 cards, opting not to play that lost vacuum, though. Is it? Yeah, it is a lost vacuum in hand, right? Yeah, lost vacuum. Oh, get a lost vacuum to get rid of a Beach Court. So now can draw 3 cards here, Fusion Strike system. Again, this could be game defining here, because removing the Beach Court, the Deoxys might not be able to get out the active without discarding energy. What do we see? Judge, I believe. And DTE! Oh my goodness.
By getting rid of that Beach Court, putting in the Lost Zone, it does help out Piotr with the Lost Zone counter.
Actually, yeah.
But I'd be interested to see whether getting rid of Deoxys with an attack here and then Echoing Horning it later on for a Sableye, that could be a route to get those first 2 prize cards. Just so scared of that constant announcement of Photon Boost.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that is a World Chain Genesect V right there, because that was a fantastic 3 cards to draw in that scenario. Lassay saying, hold on a second, I've given you 1 turn, Piotr, but now it's time for me to try and get back in this driver's seat.
Yeah, deck's name Mew VMAX, but we all know Genesect V is the real MVP of this deck. Always drawing into exactly what you need, and if not, you might have another one available to help out, and just there, Judge and double turbo energy. So brilliant play here from Lassa. And this is it. Mew can just play aggressively, especially if you're a game ahead. You can just try and high roll into that perfect scenario, knowing that we can just reset and go again next time.
Exactly. And there we do see the Photon Boost, first prize card taken, going to Lassay, over to Piotr. How did the judge treat him? So we see Roxanne, Energy Recycler, Comfey, at least 1 Psych Energy. Here we see a Flower selecting Echoing Horn.
Does he get rid of it again? He knows what happened last game when he did that.
Yeah.
But he knows that Poker Gear could be huge for a Colress Experiment, and this is the tough challenge. He gets rid of the Echoing Horn again, and that could come back to bite him towards the end.
Really could. We saw in the last game, if the Echoing Horn was available, Piotr could have easily won. And there sees some of the problems of an Echoing Horn card is that when you use it, it is so strong, but it's so situational. If you draw it at the wrong time, sometimes you have to just discard it or lost zone it. And unfortunately for Piotr, that's exactly what he has to do 2 games in a row.
Well, he did get the Colress Experiment off of that Poker Gear. That would have been quite disheartening if the Poker Gear found nothing. But now, you said that first hand off the judge. There was an Energy Recycler, there was a Roxanne in it, cards he doesn't want to see, and that's why the judge is so good. If they find the cards they don't want right now in those judged hands, it can make it difficult. But, Colress Experiment off the flower selecting will be a great way to dig deeper and start thinning out that deck.
Right. Oh, wow. 3 escape ropes. Is that 3 or 4?
3 escape rope, water energy, and another card.
Yeah, purple background item, whatever that is. Yeah, wow. So all the switching cards there for Piotr. And like you said, that's exactly what you said about the judge, forcing Piotr to use these situational cards and put them in a loss zone. Unfortunately, that judge could have won Lassay the game right then and there.
Exactly. Judge and Pray has worked so well here at this regional, which is why Mew VMAX has done so well. At previous regionals in this format, we've seen Arceus do well, also following that judge path method. Early on in rotations, we typically see hand disruption working mighty well, and this has been a great example of it here with this Mew VMAX. Even though there's only 2 judge, they've just been so effective whenever they've come out.
100%. Here we do see Cramorant come down. I was about to say, would we see a spinning attack KO here on the Deoxys? The 2 for 30, definitely possible with Mirage Gate, but no, we just see the Cramorant, and there we see the valiant Deoxys eventually hitting the discard pile. 5 prize cards taken over 2 games.
And with the fusion build, one of the beauties of it is having 2 fusion energy attached to a Mew VMAX. You can still use Max Miracle. You do not need the Mew VMAX on the bench to be able to use it. You can just copy it straight off of the card itself.
I'm guessing that looks like a Tails by the looks of it. 2 Genesects in play, and like you said, being able to Max Miracle with no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Looking at Lassay's hand there, was it another Chromatic? Getting rid of a power tablet, I believe. Are we going to go 0 for 2 here, Lassay? Let's see. Whoa.
What do we see?
Is that a 2?
Oh, there we go.
Whatever it is, it's a heads.
That is a heads right there. Lasser going into the deck, trying to find a vital card right now. Maybe another Judge. At this point, not much else needed. Because the only prize has been taken so far by Piotr was a 1-prizer, there's going to be a time where he's going to have to go down to 3 prizes because Lasser's not going to put another single prize in play. The Meloetta's not coming back into play. And the Echoing Horn is gone, so Deoxys is now staying in that discard pile. And because of that, a Genesect needs to be taken, and then after that, there will be a potential for Roxanne Disruption, which is that bit more effective.
And I tell you what, like we saw in the last game, for Piotr, Lassay just made it as hard as possible for that Kroger turn to be navigated. And if you can throw a Roxanne in the mix, that makes it even harder for sure. I wonder what Lassay's taking here then. What's the guesses? We see a Mew V. Lassay needs to, I guess, prepare for another Mew VMAX at some point, but currently both in the prize card. So Fusion Strike system, let's see what he draws.
Okay, I think there was an Ultra Ball there. So that will be able to get a Genesect and thin the hand down a little bit, which is always quite good. Ultra Ball's secondary effect in Mew is to thin the hand down quite a lot, but actually just going to copy Max Miracle. And you see there, Piotr questioning, is Max Miracle possible?
Yeah.
And this is where that lack of familiarity with the Fusion Strike build meant that he didn't even think about Max Miracle and maybe was hoping for a Techno Blast.
Especially when Max Miracle, when it's normally used with a DG, so it's only doing 110. But yeah, when you just do that full 130, perfect amount to keep this rolling. Pressure back onto Piotr here. Having started to turn off, well, that's an easy decision. VIP Battle Pass straight to the Lost Zone. And I think that takes us to the magic number 10. Sableye is now currently live.
Yeah, Max Miracle for 130 will knock out every single Pokemon in Piotr's deck. Zamazenta has 130 hit points and that Metal Shield ability, but Max Miracle will go through that ability. And so everything has to be worried about Max Miracle. And we see that Mew coming into the active spot there. And Zamazenta could be a good attacker in this matchup to get that 2-prizer as well.
It actually could be. That's a fantastic point. A Pokemon was KO'd last turn, and that would allow Peter to go down to 3 prize cards, which then does leave the door open for Kroger again. Or, in some scenarios, knocking out Lassay's only Mew VMAX. So that could get a little bit dicey if Lassay can't take one of these other 2. Oh my goodness, could that be the prize path?
Maybe, and Zamazenta requires 2 metal and a colorless, so a Mirage Gate would need to attach one of those metals and maybe the other one by hand.
I think he just took the Zamazenta off that flower selecting, I believe. Am I correct? And didn't quite see it, but I think that'd be a fantastic card to use in this scenario.
Yeah, maybe just a pass. So, you know, just taking his time, biding his time. The Mew can free retreat. Another Max Miracle can be announced. Genesect's there to draw. Lasser just knows that he's got to keep announcing attacks every single turn. As we mentioned, only single prizes in Piotr's build of the Lost Box means that it's going to take 6 attacks for Lasser to win.
100%. Here we do see an Ultra Ball. And let's see what this grab. Is it going to be a Genesect? It's definitely not going to be Mellow, I can tell you that.
I assume he knows that both Mew VMAXs are prized. Hopefully that was checked earlier on in the game.
I'm not 100% sure he did, looking at the reactions. I think he just felt that failed searcher. Yeah, I mean, he could opted to grab a Genesect there, but don't want to be putting too many of them in play. So yeah, it looks like, yeah, just, I mean, at the worst case scenario, you're still drawing cards in Fusion Strike system. Yeah,
based off how people typically take prizes, the next prize will be a Mew VMAX. You know, there's 2 Mew VMAX in 4 prizes, 50% chance of getting it. So he will back himself to get it by the time it's relevant, and then leaving only 2 Genesect in play. We saw how relevant that was last game, and forcing a Mew VMAX knockout could be huge. So that Zamazenta knockout as soon as possible could be key here.
Yeah, and I'm loving how Lasse has been playing this. He's been playing it perfectly, in my opinion. You know, being sensible with the, okay, I was about to say being sensible with the bench, but does put down another Genesect just as I say that. Here we see a Fusion Strike system drawing some cards. And I think if you're Lasse, you're perfectly fine to just Max Miracle and really make that Kroger turn as hard as possible.
Yeah, I think the fact that the Photon Boost Deoxys got taken out early on, that means that Roxanne will be accessed when one of the 2 prizes is taken. And so Lasse just recognizing that that will be his win condition at the end of the game. You know, try and announce as many attacks as possible and get to that point where Roxanne can be announced.
Yeah, Roxanne, a dangerous supporter, especially for these Lost Box decks, giving the opponent a 2-card hand to start the turn. Obviously, they can top deck and go up to 3, but can be absolutely game-defining. And we've seen judge offs, as it were, where judges are getting fired off. I think in day 1 we saw Roxanne offs, where they've just been being fired off as well. Can get dicey.
Disruption is the word here in Malmo. It has been so key to every single match that has been won on stream. I think the challenge from this meta is drawing out of 4-card hands, which is why Judge has been featuring, and we know it's going to get more challenging with Iona coming out soon.
Goodness. Oh, goodness gracious me.
Right now, these players will be loving the fact that a Judge is the worst-case scenario.
Yeah, and that completely changes how comebacks will be applied there in the future for it. Everyone's going to see Max Miracle being announced, going to 3 prize cards, and like you said, there is a Mew VMAX being taken. That's thinking, oh goodness, I've got another attacker at the very least. Over to Piotr's side of the board there, we do see the Zamazenta. We do see some energies. I imagine there's a Mirage Gate in there, so yeah, there is a Mirage Gate. And yeah, this is going to get interesting, because if you do just Zamazenta into this Mew V, it can just Psychic Leap away.
Exactly, and no Greninja in play, so the part of the peak has been avoided this whole time. Don't need to put that down unless there's a Greninja. It's only going to affect Lasse more than it'll affect Piotr. So keeping those Genesects open to keep motoring through the deck, which was a challenge of last game, which meant those Genesects were a little bit more challenging. And now we see the Kyogre has to be taken. Switch card put into the lost zone. So that's another switch out removed from play for Piotr. Getting harder and harder to secure that final game play, especially after disruption. So that Photon Boost Deoxys being taken out has really changed the flow of this game and put it much more in favor of the Fusion Mew build.
Funnily enough, yeah, taking a KO has put Mew VMAX in an advantageous position. And one other interesting thing about using Mew VMAX with Fusion Energy is that, let's say Piotr does just swing into the active with Zamazenta. You now no longer need a power tablet to get a KO with Psychic Leap on a comp phase, because your starting damage is 70, not 50. So one extra little wrinkle worth keeping an eye on, as it were.
So yeah, I wonder if the strategy will be to spread with Sableye, leaving multiple Pokemon ready to go and just reducing the amount of turns needed. But no matter what, a Roxanne will be required. But Roxanne here from Piotr to try and disrupt Lasse. As we mentioned, those Genesects are still live, so we'll be able to draw out of it. But anything that was sitting in Lasse's hand there, ready for next turn, won't be available.
And it's interesting to know what Lasse was holding on to. I guess the Mew VMAX, funnily enough, with a couple Ultra Balls being played already, could make it quite hard to actually find that next Mew VMAX. Maybe even want to leave it as a Mew V, so you have option to Psychic Leap. But like you said, Lasse will have access to Fusion Strike system, so these 2 cards will quickly turn into 5. But let's see how the Roxanne treats Piotr, because let's not forget, it gives Piotr a nice, fresh hand of 6.
Yeah, and again, how these 6 distribute will decide whether those flower selectings are tougher or not, because if you get a lot of those vital pieces in the deck, you could get one of those tough flower selectings where both are required and one will need to go to the lost zone.
I don't think that Roxanne was particularly great. No switching options. They're going to have to just pay retreat. No other thinning of the deck, as it were. We are going to enter turn with the Lost Mino. You know, all things considered, a very good attack, letting you put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. Where do you think these are going?
I think there's going to have to be some on that active Mew VMAX, because the Mew VMAX needs to be available to knock out to take 5 prizes in one turn with the Kyogre. Yeah. That's the only route to victory here I can see being viable. So perhaps put 6 on both Mew and Mew VMAX.
Yeah, that seems pretty sensible. Probably put it on that Mew V on the bench that can evolve and get that HP buff. But then again, I guess if you evolve, it's still going to be a free prize Pokemon that can get KO'd. So yeah, maybe double Mew is the play. Genesect's never a bad option either, because you know they're going to stay in play. So it looks like some's going there.
Okay, going to go onto all-on-one Genesect, because I guess the scenario is with the Mew VMAX, if you put 6 on each, the active one Psychic Leaps, you put the other Mew into the active spot, make it a Mew VMAX, and then you're back to where you were before.
Yeah, good point. All onto one is interesting. I guess Peter's worked out there is no Penny or Vola or anything like this. Well, at least he's making that assumption. So that damage is staying there. But Lasse is just continuing his march to the finals here. Gonna probably go down to 2 prize cards this turn. And
oh, definitely.
yeah, and Lasse is just could be a bit nonchalant. Okay, I'll just attack again. I'm going to make it as hard for you to do this turn as possible. And if Peter does take that KO on the Genesect, Roxanne could be fired off from him as well.
Just going to be Max Miracle.
Yeah.
Can you win? Max Miracle.
Yeah.
Can you win? Maybe a bit of disruption in there.
Yeah.
Can you win? That's going to be the game plan here as we see a 5-wide bench. All the Genesects are out, so the draw engine is a go. Lass is going to try and find his way through the deck to all of those vital pieces. Maybe a Judge. Maybe we'll see something like a Roxanne later on after this first Genesect goes down. But yeah, 3 turns left here for Piotr. Well, 2 turns left after this one.
I think Judge is in hand, so we could see a path. Judge turn here. Oh no, just seeing a Max Miracle. I don't mind that. Wait for the hand to get even bigger for Piotr and make it as hard as possible. Because right now, Cryoga is not a win con. When it is, that's when you want to disrupt. And I have to feel as if this game could be starting to get away from Piotr. I think this is a very crucial turn.
2 turns left for Piotr here. I don't see a world where he can stop Lasse from attacking over and over again. Maybe a boss onto a Genesect would allow for maybe a turn to be one back. There's no boss, so escape rope would always be into that Mew for the retreat. So everything right now is in favor of Lasse.
Wow, and what a situation he's put himself in. You know, on face value, hasn't been doing a lot. He's been announcing attacks and judging and Roxanning every now. I had his Roxanne actually, but he's put himself in an amazing position. But if anyone can navigate out of this, Piotr is high up on that list. Started off the turn with a Chorus Experiment. Let's see what cards he can grab.
Putting that Greninja into the active, knowing that he has to get the Mirage Gate and Water Energy onto it, start attacking with that 180 damage into play with a Greninja, which is way more than that 120 of Sableye. So we're going to have to go down the old-fashioned route of taking out multiple Genesects across those turns. It's just not enough time, though.
I think, is it going to be Moonlight Shuriken, KO the benched Genesect V, put damage somewhere, and then Cryoga for the next 3 prizes? I think that has to be how it goes. Moonlight Shuriken's very easy. There we do see a Energy Recycler. Going to shuffle in, 5 basic energy, and there's quite a few there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe. No, it is 5, sorry. So you're going to shuffle them all in.
And I think that what you said there about the Kyogre, I guess the Moonlight Shuriken has to be on the Mew and knocking out that Genesect, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's no options with it there, unfortunately. But you can see this is where Cryoga being a very powerful deck on face value, but a very hard deck. Everything is meticulous. Damage here has to go there, can't be healed. It really sets you back, and you know, judges here can just make life so hard.
I spoke with Jesper about this matchup, and he said it's easy for Kyogre. And I said, what are you going to do when they keep judging you? And he goes, oh.
Just draw out of it, right?
Just draw out of it, right?
That's it.
and that's the whole thing with Mew, is it's an easy matchup if you follow your game plan, but your game plan is constantly being questioned with these judges, and now the Roxanne will be a potential card next turn to worry about. For Lasse, 2 more turns required. The Mirage Gate onto that Greninja, the Water in hand. We're going to see that Moonlight Shuriken now into the final turns.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You saw the Energy Recycler being played, but not shuffling as many energies as possible because you don't want to draw into them. But there we do see, okay, damage into Genesect and KOing the other one, I believe, right?
Oh, he's just taking the time to think about it. Oh. There is also a world where if you attacked into the active Mew VMAX and it didn't Psychic Leap, which obviously Psychic Leap would be tricky here with the Greninja in the active spot. So he will put it onto the active, and then that means Zamazenta could be an attacker next turn into the active Mew VMAX if energy is not found for that bench Mew and it's not evolved.
No, this is actually a really interesting playout, because if Lasse decides to Psychic Leap without putting down another Mew V, Cryoga can come down and knock out the only Mew V left to Lasse in play, meaning he could struggle to close the game out. However, Meloetta could come back, maybe. Oh, there's 3 Fusion Energies in play. He can't even do that.
So the judge here, before getting rid of the path, that means there was no lost vacuum in Lasse's hand before. Needs to use it later on. He used the lost vacuum to get rid of a lost vacuum earlier on. So both those been used. The other one's in the prizes, so that path is going to stick. Needs to find Mew VMAX and an energy off of this turn. Maybe even a psychic leap into the Mew and just trust that next turn can make it.
Yeah, this is currently really close now. Everything to play for in this top 4. This game is in reach for both players, I'm 100% sure. Let's see what Judge does for Lasse here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that was 5, I should say, in total. Let's see what he gets.
Power tablets, 2 of them, plus the psychic leap would knock out the Greninja.
Ooh.
We're just going to announce the Max Miracle and ask the question, can you get it off the judge? Can you get that Zamazenta off the judge here?
Nest Ball Recycler is a fantastic part of the puzzle.
So Nest Ball, Zamazenta going to be coming down here.
Yeah, Zamazenta just comes down. Wait a minute.
There's a Zamazenta there. Mirage Gate onto that Zamazenta.
Yep.
An attack was, Pokemon was knocked out in the last turn, so Zamazenta for 220 will knock out the active Mew VMAX. Only 3 prizes required here for Piotr.
Wow, so these are going to be some real big flower selectings here. Does have access to that Pokestop as well, actually. So it has a little bit of extra dig. Here we go. Can't play that Energy Recycler yet. You want to play that last in theory. Nest Ball, whatever is in the other target, so can't really thin there. Here we go, big flower selecting.
Flower selecting 1 gets the Pokestop or the Clara. Clara will get an energy back, but the Energy Recycler plus Mirage Gate is needed, so Clara or Pokestop. If you go for the Pokestop, then you will get through that whole deck, and a Mirage Gate is needed and an Energy Recycler is needed, so Pokestop will get you those 2 things, but an energy to attach is needed as well.
That is arguably, again, the worst 2 cards to see in that exact combination. Like you said, Pokestop gets you the items, Clara gets you the energy to attach. I think you do have to go for Pokestop here.
Is there a switch out left in that deck? Because if there's a switch out there, they might be able to do another flower selecting for one of those energies off the Energy Recycler.
I'm not 100% sure there was, if I'm honest.
Just waiting here to see what happens for Piotr. He's going to use the Nest Ball. So
there is a switch card
in there. If the Clara is one of the cards discarded, as long as he gets Energy Recycler, Switch Card, and Mirage Gate off of this, maybe even off the flower selecting might be enough.
Yeah, so kind of needs that Cloud to the bottom card. That's where it was before he shuffled. Oh boy. Oh, this is ridiculously close. Pokestop, don't see the Clara.
Oh, there's the Clara. No! Mirage Gate is the last card in there. So the switch card can go into the next flower selecting. So we'll be able to get that Mirage Gate off of the flower selecting, but needs to put some energy back in at some point.
Oh, goodness gracious me. Oh, so we know the Mirage Gate is there. So here we see the switch card.
Okay, so he's going to be going in, taking that final card. Mirage Gate it is, but he needs to find another energy. I don't think he has it.
Oh, could we? Oh, wait a minute. No, but hasn't got a way to switch out the active.
He needs to have an energy attached from hand here.
Yeah, but no way of digging for it.
Oh, so he needed too much there.
I think he just didn't need to see the Clara, in all honesty.
He needed that Clara off of the flower selecting and has not been able to do it.
No, can't do it. Can only attach 2. No way of getting this Comfey out the hand. And yeah,
Lasse does it. Lasse does it. Max Miracle to finish off the game. He comes through with the Fusion Mew. Piotr fought valiantly, but will be knocked out here in the semi-finals. Lasse is your Malmo finalist.
Big congratulations there to Lasse. It might have seemed very nonchalant in the game plan, but it works out perfectly. Let me just announce an attack and disrupt every now and then and make this wonder turn of Kyogre as hard as possible, and it worked out perfectly. He will be seeing himself into the final.
Wow, the disruption really coming through there. Piotr had so many tough decisions throughout. Flower selectings were done aplenty, and it was so difficult to make those right decisions, sometimes not even in his control. And that's where the lost engine can be so unforgiving. What a game.
Wow, honestly, those last turns in both games could have went either way. We saw that last game, the Pokestop and all that jazz, and it was just so ridiculously close. And that can be the problem with the Kyogre. It's built around that turn. That turn there needs to be perfect for you to win games. And if any part of that puzzle isn't perfect, the game can slip out of your fingers.
I think beforehand there was a Clara or something else. and they put the Clara into the loss zone. I can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been an energy recycler.
Maybe,
and had they gone for the Clara rather than the energy recycler there, it was Pokestop or Clara, wasn't it?
That was it, actually, yeah.
And that turn, there was 2 Claras there in the final bit of deck. Pokestop had to get those last few pieces, and the Clara had to be that final card there, which is very unlikely to happen. You know, a 1 in 4 chance, but still. How unfortunate there for Piotr. Could not deal with the disruption. Lasse, one of the Mew VMAXs, there were 4 in the top 4, and 1 Mew VMAX will make it to the final. I wonder what happened on the other side.
Well, I think looking at the ticker, it was currently 1-1 when I saw it, so all to play for in a Game 3 scenario. Unsure who won the first or second game, so who's going first in the Game 3 scenario. But let's have a look at this bracket and how it's all panning out here.
I mean, we've had an amazing time here in Malmo, but the top 8 has been so tense. Some quick quarterfinals. Brennan was a quick quarterfinal, and Lasse, they got through to those semis rather quickly. And what we are seeing right here is Consta making it through that top semi-final there, beating Brennan out. And does that mean?
Yep.
Does that
It does. It does. I know what you're thinking.
Is that a Mew VMAX mirror?
It is a Mew VMAX mirror, you cheeky geezer, saying that Mew VMAX would win all the way back at round 1. We made our predictions, and Mike over here managed to get himself a mirror of sorts. Technically, you could argue it's a Disruption versus a Fusion Mew, but there will be Mew VMAXs squaring off into each other in the final. And as a former Mew VMAX player myself, maybe it could be a current Mew VMAX player, I'm happy too.
Oh, amazing stuff here. I'm very happy myself. I've been believing in Mew VMAX recently, but that's the worst thing to do. You want to tell people Mew VMAX is terrible, as that's going to be the time when it's most powerful. And here it has been disrespected throughout. And consequently, we have a Mew VMAX guaranteed to win here in Malmo. 2 different types of Mew VMAX, so we'll find out which one's better. I believe Lasse beat the other Mew VMAX in the quarterfinals. So Fusion came out over Double Turbo Energy Mew. Can they do it twice in the same tournament?
Yeah, you never know. It could everything to play for. I think traditionally, Fusion Mew into Disruption Mew can be difficult. But like you said, Lash has done it all one time already. He's basically saying, right, hold on a second, guys. So Mew VMAX is apparently, or my Mew VMAX is bad into Disruption Mew. Let me beat that. Right, what's next in top 4? Kyogre. That's meant to be a bad matchup, is it? Let me just beat that as well and get myself in the final. So if I'm Lasse, my confidence is sky high. I
can see you falling back in love with your old beloved deck, Fusion Mew. You were telling me how great it was the first time we met. You couldn't stop talking about how great it was. In fact, you had Meloetta pin badges every day. Genesect pin badges. You were all about that Fusion Mew. I think this pink suit you even bought because of your love for Mew.
Yeah.
And now you're here. You've gone to the dark side, quite literally with Lugia with those dark attackers. Now you're all coming back home. Fusion Mew has made it to the final. But I hope you guys have been enjoying the coverage here in the Malmo region. I certainly have been. I think you and I have been blessed there with an amazing semi-final.
That was amazing. Both players playing it perfectly. Piotr, all credit to him, did play it well. The judges and the Roxans were just too difficult for him to overcome. But what a top 4 game. We are going to get sport here in our finals as well. But let's hear from the man himself, Lasse, here in this interview.
Thank you so much, Shay, and what a final we just had. I'm back here with the winner's interview with that amazing semi-final. Lasse, I have to ask you, you're a finalist, but before you have to prepare for the final game, I just have to ask you, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling exhausted, but I'm extremely happy. I mean, it was a great game between me and Peter. Like, I don't know, I'm just exhausted.
Yeah, Piotr, a fearless opponent. We've seen him on stream. He's performed so well.
I've known him since like 2015. So it was really nice to play against him in this semifinals. I was like, no matter the outcome, we'll just play and have fun, and but
it made
here.
It made it a little bit more relaxed, just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah.
Well, with the final, we were all on the edge of our seats. I mean, we just didn't know what was going to happen next.
Yeah.
And for you as a MUVMAX player, I said to you just before this interview, that was sweaty. As if there's no better term for it.
To be honest, I didn't even know what was happening. I was just trying to take prizes and hope for the best, I guess.
Well, unfortunately, your day's not over.
No, it's
You've got one more game. The pressure's still on. But I have to ask you, MUVMAX going into the final against another MUVMAX, it's going to be disruption versus aggression. How are you feeling towards that?
I'm feeling good, I think. I mean, like I said, this is like no matter what's the outcome, like, it's going to be two Finnish players playing against each other. Two new players.
When you told me that, two Finnish players, what are the odds?
Yeah, I mean, Konsta been doing really great today, and I'm sitting here. So.
You're going to have to be looking at each other. Look at us.
Yeah.
Hey, look at us. Who thought?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this somebody that you know? Is this somebody that you tested?
Yeah, I know him. I know him, and known him for a long time, and yeah.
Is he a local to you? Do you test together?
To be honest, I don't really test because I live like a bit further than anyone else. So I just play a bit online and see what happens.
Don't tell me you've just rocked up to this event and made the final.
I mean, like at EUIC, I went 6-1-1.
Nice.
Then I lost the last round of day 2. Then I lost all rounds lost the last round of day 1. Then I lost all the rounds on day 2. And I was like one day I was sitting at home and thinking like, I think this deck could do better. So I'll see if I can still register here.
Yeah.
I was able to. I booked the flights. Here I am.
Oh, very good. Yeah, well, it's almost a dream come true.
Yeah.
But, we have to go back to your deck choice. Now, Fusion Strike build, MUVMAX, it's not that popular anymore.
Yeah.
We usually go for the more disruptive build we see in our local meta. Well, I say local, our European meta. We see more of a disruption type build with the Judge in the paths. Why did you stray away from that? Why did you keep to the Fusion Strike?
I tried the DTMU at Utrecht, and I went 2-3 drop. So I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah, no.
So I thought that like maybe in some cases where I go second and I can have the more aggressive start.
Yeah.
And maybe get the 2 prizes. So.
No, yeah, sure,
just
totally.
high roll and see what happens.
High roll and see what happens. I like it. Well, you've I wouldn't say high rolled yourself to the final, but you are here. So how is your journey all the way here? Start from day 1 to day 2. How did it happen? How did it all unfold?
I mean, it's pretty blank, if I'm honest. I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's just
Were there any memorable moments? Were there any memorable opponents that you came up against?
Cannot think any specific right now. I'm just.
Well, look, save your energy. Save your energy. You don't have to give me any more. You have to final to prep. So let's get right into it. But for our viewers back home, let's go to a quick break and we'll be right back with our final, and it's live.